It's Thursday, and the Bluebloods are back with another loaded episode full of college football content for all our listeners out there. We start the episode by debating which national championship team was the least deserving. Then we continue our hot seat segment and we continue our group of five run here with the Sun Belt Conference. We then move on to debating which school has the best backfield in college football heading into this next season. And of course, you already know we wrap it all up with your favorite segment, our recruiting update. And this time we had to look at Notre Dame's 2021 recruiting class. We have a full show, guys, so let's kick it off. A few episodes back, we broke down the worst or least deserving Heisman winners of all time. So it got myself and Brandon thinking, and we said, why not? Let's just break down the worst and least deserving of a few different things. And so today, we're going to do national champions in college football history. So we want to keep this fair, guys. Same thing with the Heisman. We're only taking into account teams since 1980. It's around where the modern era of college football started. It's really hard to say, to compare the 1919 teams to today's team. And so we're going to keep it modern. But Brandon, who is your pick for the least deserving national champion in college football history?
Zach, so this question actually hit me very hard and made me reflect on a lot of things. Number one, I need to think about my biases and I need to take them face on. So, what I'm going to do is, since I can't be biased forever, I think the least deserving national champion of all time is a team that probably shouldn't have been in the national championship to start with. I've got 2007 LSU, and I don't want to talk
Wait,
about
hang
it
on,
very much.
time out. We're gonna stop the podcast. You picked the 2007 LSU Tigers.
Zach, I just said I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, I have to. They're the only two-loss national champion in the modern era. I mean, that's BCS, that's playoff. They are the only two-loss national champion since 1980, since what we're talking about.
Yeah, they are, and they were my first pick. I have another team, but I honestly had like this whole segment written out just to tear you apart. But you picked them, so why don't you give us your fan perspective, and then I'll jump into like what I thought about the season.
I'll tell you exactly what I thought. I mean, it was 2007, so I was the ripe age of 11 years old when this team won the national championship. And all I remember is being a kid and being very, very emotional about football, maybe even more so than I am now, which is saying a lot. And so I remember LSU lost to Kentucky, and I was like, oh no, this is a really good LSU team. They lost to Kentucky. What's going to happen now? They still have their national championship hopes alive. That was the team with Glenn Dorsey, and that was the team that a lot of LSU fans thought could win it all. And then it's rivalry weekend at the end of November. It's the weekend after Thanksgiving, and LSU drops the ball again in another three overtime game. By the way, the Kentucky game was a three overtime game. So was the Arkansas game that LSU lost, and so now LSU is going into the SEC championship with two losses, and they end up winning that, and somehow end up second overall in the BCS poll, and they made the national championship, which makes a lot of USC fans very upset. Um, but they ended up putting the smackdown on Ohio State, which, yeah, I guess they won the national championship. I just don't think they were very deserving. And I'll be the first one to say they probably didn't belong in that game to start with, but they somehow made it because the BCS system is points and a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I'm dumb. And so that's how they did it.
Yeah, I felt like we couldn't have this segment, and it couldn't be taken seriously if we didn't include the only two-loss team to ever make the championship.
Right.
I feel like that was a guarantee. Like I even put in here, I was even going to apologize. I was going to be like, "I'm sorry, Brandon, but this is the low-hanging fruit of this segment. You have to pick a two-loss team who lost to Kentucky and Arkansas. It's not like they lost to Florida or
Okay,
Auburn or Alabama.
Arkansas was good. Arkansas was
Uh,
good that year.
but both teams finished 8-5, and Kentucky had a losing SEC record. Neither of those teams were great.
Okay, that's
Okay, I'll
pretty.
give
I
you this.
I don't like
I've
where we're
just
going with this. They beat
I've just
Auburn.
messed. You don't want to know why? Because Auburn was not that good.
Auburn finished number 18 that year.
Yeah, they were okay, but we had some tough stretches. But that one of the better Auburn teams in history. But I mean, so I'm gonna say this: Arkansas had a lot of talent. Did they put it all together all the time? No, but they did go into LSU and beat LSU in Death Valley. And the funny part is, Brandon, you know who the offensive coordinator was for that Arkansas team?
Yeah, Gus Malzahn.
Gus Malzahn. You know what I wish he did? I wish he brought that formula on how to win in Death Valley to Auburn, but I guess they confiscated it when they let him go.
That was
Um,
really mean. I don't like that.
yeah, that was kind of. That was more like of a punch to my gut as an Auburn fan. The fact that we can't beat LSU in Death Valley, but the weird thing about this is that LSU jumped three teams in the polls that didn't even play during championship week.
Yeah, well, maybe make your conference championship.
Well, okay, so there were three teams that people have argued deserve to be there more than LSU that they jumped in that poll. The first one is Virginia Tech,
Meh.
who also was a two-loss team, and they
Which,
were
by
the
the
eighth.
way,
One of them
I would
was to
like.
LSU. One of them was to
Uh-huh.
LSU,
And
and
what was the
it was
score,
a
Zach?
blowout. A blowout. They beat them by like 30 points, and
LSU
I
won
was
that game 48-7. LSU won
yeah.
48-7 against Virginia Tech. They didn't belong.
Yeah, they did belong. I was going to say that that's the one team that people are like, well, they were also a conference champion, but it's pretty convincing when you get beat 48-7. So I understand the jump over Virginia Tech there. And then they jumped over Georgia, who was a two-loss SEC team, but didn't make the conference championship because Tennessee held the tiebreaker. So I get why LSU jumps Georgia. They're in the same conference. They're the conference champion. So Georgia, you have to sit out. You should have made the championship, right?
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying.
yeah, and I think that's why. Okay, I can't believe I'm about to argue this on a national podcast, but I'm gonna have to. The team that should have been in the championship is Kansas.
Oh no.
Kansas Jayhawks,
Oh
guys.
no.
Yes. Yes, the team that didn't win a game for like 3 years. But in 2007, they were a one-loss team, and their only loss came to a number one ranked Missouri team in Kansas City in the last week of the season.
Well,
That So they had one loss to a top 10 team at a neutral site game. LSU lost to Kentucky, who finished unranked, and an unranked Arkansas team. So
okay.
LSU was probably a better team than Kansas in talent wise, but how are you going to put a two-loss team over a two-loss team who lost to two unranked teams like Kentucky and Arkansas over a team who has one loss to the eventual number one team in the country? Because Missouri was the number one team in the country heading into conference championship weekend. When they played Kansas, it was a 3 versus 5 matchup, and Kansas only lost by one score.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Kansas really and truly had the better resume over LSU this past year. And if we had a committee picking like kind of like we do now, Kansas actually probably makes it in over LSU in my opinion.
Based off of what, Zach? Off of your opinion? Is that what you just said?
No, based off of just the facts. They played back in the day, the Big 12 had talent. This is
Right.
not the Big 12 of today. This is when you had Missouri that was good. Texas A&M was in the Big 12. Kansas was good. Oklahoma was still good. Texas literally just came off a national championship 2 years before. And and so that conference was deep. And so the strength of schedule was there. And they had a loss to the number 3 team in a neutral site. And LSU would have never lived down that loss to Kentucky.
Right. Right. Okay.
And they would have never lived down a loss at home against Arkansas.
Fair enough.
And so I think Kansas should have been the pick there. but I think it's an obvious choice to pick the '07 LSU Tigers, even though I don't feel like they're the least deserving. This was really my number 2 pick. My number 1 pick, though, Brandon, this will make you happy because I think this team was even more least deserving than a 2-loss LSU team.
Okay, let's hear it.
The 1984 BYU Cougars.
Strange, but okay.
So hear me out, guys. I'm sure, Brandon, if you had to count on your hands how many things you know about this team, how many fingers would you be holding up?
Um, they played in Utah. They were the Brigham Young University. So they're probably Mormon. That's what I know. Two things.
Okay, let's be honest to our listeners here. Did you even know BYU won a national championship?
I actually did, and they actually won two. Like they won in 1982 and 1984.
Oh man. So this team is why Group of 5 teams get no respect today, guys. So if you're an Appalachian State fan, a Cincinnati fan, a Memphis fan, and you're like, why don't we get a shot? This is why. So, Brandon, they opened up the season beating number 3 Pitt 20-14 in week 1, and it jumped that team into the top 10. That's pretty impressive, right?
Right.
Pitt finished 3-7-1 that season, and they were preseason ranked 3rd. So does that really count? Did they really beat the number 3 team in the country, or did they just play an overranked Pitt team?
It's kind of like my argument that LSU beat what was it, like 7 top 10 teams this past season.
Yeah.
Except for they beat Texas, who just did they even finish ranked this season?
I don't think
like,
they
oh no,
did.
they were top 10. They were top 10 when LSU played them, so they were top 10. You know,
But at least they made a bowl game. This Pitt team won 3 games,
that's fair. Yeah,
and they only beat this Pitt team by 6 points.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
And
enough.
so that's their hang their hat on. Like, this is the when you hang your hat on. BYU then proceeded to beat 12 unranked teams on their way to the championship. Brandon,
Perfect.
they
Okay.
they had a devastating schedule of Tulsa, Wyoming, New Mexico, UTEP, Utah State. How in the world did they stay undefeated?
I don't know, man.
Do you want the kicker to all this?
Yes.
Brandon, you know how LSU had to go play Clemson for the national title, and Texas and USC had to play in '05, and Florida, Ohio State had to play in the national championship. You know how it works nowadays.
Yeah.
They played in the Holiday Bowl against 6-5 Michigan. The team barely had a winning record, and that's who they got to play in the Holiday Bowl. A 6-5 Michigan team, and the voters voted them as national champions.
Well, I mean, okay, fair enough.
This team had 0 All-Americans on this roster, and the 2, 3, and 4 team in the country were Oklahoma, Florida, and Washington. How many points are you taking those 3 teams by over BYU?
Man, I just not a lot.
This team was so undeserved. Brandon, I took notes for this episode earlier today. I still can't believe they got to play a 6-5 team in the national championship.
No, yeah, I mean that's definitely not fair. If you look through like the list of national championships, you'll see like number 1 versus number 2, or number 1 versus number 3, just because things were weird back in the day, and all of a sudden you see number 1 BYU versus unranked Michigan. It's definitely it's definitely not a great look for the NCAA.
Yeah, so 1984 BYU, please take 1984 off of everything that you list. You have a national champion. You are not the national champion. You are worse than UCF, because at least UCF beat a ranked team.
Fair
You know
enough.
what? They beat multiple ranked teams.
They did.
And you know what? They did not play 6-5 Michigan. And you know what? This makes me so mad. How many teams? Okay, Brandon, if you gave LSU the chance to play a 6-5 team in the Natty this year, would you even watch the game? You
Yeah, I
would.
would. I watched the Utah State game,
Okay,
Zach. I went
okay.
to the
You,
Utah State
you,
game.
you would have watched the game. How? Okay. Would you have already bought the national championship T-shirt before the game was even played? Because I would have.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Joe Burrow would have thrown for 19 touchdowns against any 6-5 team.
Yeah, that's hey, facts.
And this. So this is my pick as the least deserving team by far that to ever win a national championship. 1994 BY Cougars. Write it down in y'all's books. I still have to go do more research because as I've researched this team, I could not believe it.
Right. No, yeah, that's definitely a very good pick, Zach. But to continue on to my final team that I thought should end up on my list, I did a lot of research, and the 1980 thing was really killing me for a long time because the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to pick one of Alabama's like six national championships where they weren't real. They just
They,
kind of like
I think,
the
I think in
Tuscaloosa Inquirer.
yeah, like 1919. I think it was 1976. They lost to Penn State in the Sugar Bowl and still won the national championship.
Yeah, yeah. So it's crazy. So there were a lot of those, and so then I was like, well, who else do I hate? And Texas, of course, comes to mind. So I was thinking, oh, 1970 Texas, but we have the 1980 thing. So, but like 1970 Texas lost to the sixth-ranked team in the country. They lost to number six Notre Dame 24-11, and still somehow won the national championship. And then I was like, well, let's go back to who I really hate, and it's Alabama, and it's 1973, and I think this is what you're referring to, Zach. And they lost. They
Yeah, you're
lost
right. I knew it
to
was
Notre
70
Dame.
something.
Notre Dame kept just losing national championships even though they won, and so Alabama lost that game and still finished first in 1973. And so what did I have to do? I really had to stick it to them, Zach, and I'm doubling down on this because um, on the last episode we talked about how I at least I talked about how the 2011 LSU team was the best team that ever won the national championship. And so, what I think I'm going to do here is I'm going to list the 2011 Alabama team as one of my least deserving national championship teams, even though there probably were better candidates. This team shouldn't have been there in the first place. That kind of goes along with my last team. At least I picked LSU. I couldn't stay unbiased for too long. Um, this team literally lost to the team they played in the national championship and still made it back. Yeah, they won 21-0. Yeah, LSU never passed the 50-yard line, whatever. LSU didn't come to play. You've heard my spiel. I'm not going to continue on it for too much longer. Alabama, you're a bum, especially in 2011.
I'm not going to argue with that. Okay, so I did give you a lot of crap. I
Yeah,
did. Don't,
fair.
but they should not have been there. I mean,
Right.
how did Oklahoma State get passed up?
That's what I mean. Hey, yeah, you're asking me. I don't know.
Uh, Oklahoma State got passed up. 11-1 Stanford got passed up. I mean, even 11-1 Boise State. I mean, come on, man. I think Oklahoma State should have been the team to make that national championship. And I think personally, I think LSU wins that game, and LSU has another national champion. So I don't hate that pick because it's the worst slash least deserving. I picked 2011 LSU as my not 2011 LSU, 07 LSU as my least deserving, and I picked BYU as the worst team to win a national championship. But I don't mind Bama, 2011 Bama being undeserving because I don't think they should have been there either. I completely agree with you here.
Right. They were very undeserving. They didn't play in their own conference championship game, yet somehow they didn't even win their that's what kills me is that they didn't even make it to their conference championship.
You want
Much
to you
like
want
it's
to
not go ahead.
you want to be more mad? They've done it twice. They didn't win their
No, I
division
know.
in 2018 either. Auburn did.
Oh, I know. And then Auburn got smacked by Georgia, and then Alabama and Georgia somehow ended up playing in the national championship. That one made me mad too, and that was a pretty serious contender for me too. But Uh, as my biases continue to grow, I had to choose this one.
As soon as we have a little bit of growth on the podcast, we take it's like one step forward, seven steps back in terms of bias on this
Like
podcast.
like seven giant leaps backward. Like I'm tripping over myself because it's too much.
Oh God, guys! But listen, we have spent 20 minutes talking about undeserving national
Oh, have
champions.
we
But
really? Oh man.
yes, that's tough. But we're gonna move on. Second segment of the day. It's our hot seat segment, and in case you missed the last few episodes, we break down which head coaches are on the hot seat going into this next season. We ran through the Power Five, we ran through the AAC. Guys, we're getting at some conferences that you guys might not know a lot about these coaches or programs, but we're going to bring you guys the content. That's our job here. We're going to do the Sun Belt today. I'm sure you guys are just as excited as we were to take notes on the Sun Belt, but Brandon, which head coach is on the hot seat for the Sun Belt right now?
Yeah, guys. Zach pretty much just hit it right on the head there. Uh, be honest with me, Zach. Did you know any of the head coaches' names in the Sun Belt before you had to do research for this?
I actually did. I knew Appalachian State's coach and I knew South Alabama's coach just because we're from Mobile and Appalachian State is actually really good.
Well, okay, fair enough. I did not know South Alabama's head coach's name. His name is Steve Campbell, and he is actually on the hottest seat I can even imagine right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Um,
I figured. Listen, guys, there's really only two choices in this conference, so me and Brandon are just going to be talking about the same people. But Brandon, go ahead and take Steve for us.
yeah, so old Steve. Everyone knows Steve Campbell. It's a household name. Um, apparently, he got his start at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. I mean, if you weren't us, you would not know where that is. It's somewhere between Mobile and New Orleans. It's on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, as the name would imply. Did pretty well there. He moved on, got Central Arkansas. They're not even D1. He got more than a junior college job though. He went to Central Arkansas, did fairly well there. You know, he didn't start out great, but he ended up winning 10 games 2 seasons in a row. And so he got the big call up to South Alabama. He moved to, Mobile, Alabama, and just made a go at it. And ever since he's been there, it's just been goodness has been disappointing. He went 3-9 in 2018 and 2-10 this past year. And honestly, not that bad for South Alabama, but it's definitely not good. You have to do something. You can't just be 5-19 and keep your job. I don't think. Uh, I don't know. Two and
I don't
ten's
know.
tough,
I
man.
don't know. Gene Chiswick was like 5-18, got the Auburn job, and then won a national title.
Oh, yeah, weird, right? Let's go ahead and call him up. Maybe once Auburn fires Gus Malzahn, you'll have Steve Campbell as a
I'm for it.
fantastic,
I'm all
yeah,
for
as a
it, guys.
fantastic sub.
In case you guys don't do math, 5-19 is like a 20.5% win percentage.
No, no, it's not good. I mean, you win.
That's tough.
That's very bad.
I mean, guys, listen. We're both from Mobile. We both understand South's a new program, but I mean, you can't. I don't think 2-10 is going to cut it anywhere in the country.
No, and you say new, and by new, Zach means that they're like what, 10 years old now? I mean, it's new, but come on. Like you gotta
Okay, okay,
10
it's
years
new compared to like Auburn, who's been around since like the 1800s. Like, come on, man.
since the earth was still young and cooling. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But last season the only wins for South were Jackson State, not D1, and an upset comeback win over Arkansas State in the last week of the season. They had
Arkansas
losses
State's
to
pretty good.
Yeah, no, they were good. That's a big win, but Jackson State,
Yeah, fair enough. The Gamecocks, yeah.
yeah, and then they lose to Texas State.
No, man. No, you can't do that.
That's a
Bad
terrible
luck.
look. Brandon, in 2 weeks, they were outscored 77-9 by Memphis and UAB.
No, I mean, like UAB didn't even have a football team like 3 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. They're even newer than South, and they
Well, they're
at
not
the.
new. They got stuff suspended.
I
It's
meant
a whole
like okay,
story, but
you can still like count them as new because they're still trying to get their program together. I mean,
fair enough.
77-9. Memphis is good. Don't get me wrong, but for Memphis UAB to beat you 77-9 at home,
Yeah, that's true.
and this season is going to be brutal. I mean, they have to go they have at Southern Miss the first week of the season. That's an L. Then they go at Florida, definitely an L. Then they have UAB, Troy, Georgia Southern, Louisiana Lafayette, and Arkansas State. That's 7 losses I see at minimum. That's if everything goes
Right.
right with the
No,
other games.
that's best case scenario for South.
Yeah, and if he wins 7 games, he at least won 5, and that matches total over the next 2 seasons or the last two
Fair.
seasons. So, but I don't see Campbell turning the ship around right now. And if let's just say he goes 2-10 again, I mean, can you really keep him at 7-29 through 3 seasons?
No, you can't. And what really cracks me up is that this is just the worst football. He holds the record for the two worst finishes in South Alabama football history because they're so new. Um, the second worst was the year that their coach got fired. He went 4-8. They're firing coaches over 4-8 at South Alabama. So 3-9 and 2-10. Well, what's next year? 1-11 for South. That's not going to cut it.
Okay, you know how bad that is. If he had the worst season ever at 2-10, that means the coach who coached their very first year of ever playing football had a better record at 2-10.
They went they went undefeated their first ever year.
Well, that's their first every year they played like nobody. But I mean, like even like when they started playing real teams, I mean, South beat Mississippi State.
Oh, I know. You're telling me? I know.
So if you could beat Mississippi State, there's no reason you should be going 2-10, losing to Texas State.
Absolutely. I mean I agree 1,000,000%.
But guys, Brandon, I'm assuming you have this guy as your second pick. It's got to be Matt Vitor for Louisiana Monroe.
Oh yeah.
Uh, very bad. I mean, so he took over in 2016 after one of the worst. I think it was the worst season in program history, which was 2-10, and they fired Todd Barry. And I mean, this program for me, okay, listen, guys. We cover a lot of Power Five stuff here. We're trying to tailor our expectations. If coaches are go 6-6 in this conference, that's amazing with the type of talent they get. But this program is better than a consistent losing, like a constant losing record. 2007 they beat Alabama. 2012 they beat Arkansas. They've beat Mississippi State and Kentucky, and they literally almost beat Florida State last year. But then the next week they follow it up with a 72-20 loss to Iowa State. That is Iowa State doesn't even score a lot, and they score 72 on you. That's not a good
You're
look.
right. No, no, not at all. I mean, it's jeez, dude. It's real bad. It's real tough out here in these streets.
I mean, so I looked at their schedule. It's manageable. Can I say that it's manageable? He could keep his job because the schedule is so easy. But they do have some big games. They have to play at Georgia. Brandon, you think they got a chance there? I don't. Um, but then it like realistically, they have games at Troy, Appalachian State, at Georgia State, at Arkansas State, at Arkansas, then Louisiana Lafayette. I mean, that's 7 losses I personally see, but I think anything under 6 wins is going to cost Matt his job.
Do you? I mean, I don't know if anything under six costs him this job. I mean,
Okay,
I
maybe five
understand
and
that
seven.
maybe. Yeah.
Their
I don't
schedule's
know.
really not that tough. I mean, it's weird
It's not
though.
that tough, and it's not like it's a team even like South Alabama who doesn't have like bowl expectations. I mean, if you're Louisiana Monroe, you're at least expecting to go to a bowl game, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said 6-6. Like, I mean, this he's not doing a good job here. I mean, the program's trending in the wrong direction.
Right. No, and you want to correct that. I mean, there's a reason he's on my hot seat. I mean, he's the only other coach on my hot seat in this conference. So it's um I don't know. You can't be teetering on bowl eligibility here. I mean, I understand it's Louisiana Monroe. It's maybe not like the pinnacle of what a blue blood program is in college football, but it's a team that should. I mean, what do you expect for Louisiana Monroe? I mean, like I think 7-5 is like that's not too much to ask for of this program.
Yeah,
That's pretty
I
average.
I don't think it is too. I think it's fine. And I mean, personally, I mean, okay, I want to like say one thing about their schedule. I don't know if how hard you looked at it. They have back-to-back trips to Arkansas. They play Arkansas State and Arkansas on back-to-back weeks and have to travel for both of them.
I did
Is
not.
that not
They might.
trash?
They just might not leave. Monroe is so close to Arkansas, though. It's not like they're going that far.
It's ridiculous, man. I mean, okay, so I don't like anyone to get fired. I mean, I would really like Luz Monroe to go on a win streak and he'll keep his job, but I just personally don't see it, man. Because for me, it's like once a program starts having multiple losing seasons, I feel like it just spirals for me. I mean, I don't know about you, but it just seems to just snowball into just this like hard to manage mess. And so I don't see him turning it around. And I think they go in a different direction because I feel like Louisiana Monroe can pull a young up and coming coach that can really turn it around. They have that type of name recognition for a group of five program.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And to put this in perspective, guys, I am saying both of these coaches are on the hot seat. I think that Steve Campbell's way more on the hot seat than Matt Vitor is, but like it's not even close. It's like Steve Campbell's not going to have his job anymore after this next season. Matt Vitor still has a shot to keep his job this upcoming season, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, he definitely does. Some of these coaches, I feel like they're out no matter what, really. But yeah, he definitely could save his job with a decent season. And they have the talent to do it. And so, out of all the coaches we covered, I have a lot of confidence in Matt Vitor.
Yeah, and hopefully he can turn around. Like you said, we don't really want coaches to get fired, right? We're not hoping somebody loses their job, you know?
Oh man, this segment's always tough. Like, because I feel like, but on that, guys, I mean, I don't know how much of you guys watch Sunbelt football, but
Fun belt.
the Fun Belt. But the other coaches, they're all new. Or they're either new or they're experienced coaches that have bought themselves a bad year or two. But for right now, guys, we are going to move on. Third segment of the day. Last episode we ranked current college football quarterbacks into five different tiers. Go check out our last episode, available everywhere to catch that. But with the season approaching, we thought it would be best to start breaking teams down for next season. And instead of ranking all the running backs in college football into tiers, I'm sure Brandon might have quit the podcast if I would have thrown that segment at him. We're going to start a new segment where we break down the best of the best at each position. So Brandon and I will be picking a program or two that we think have the best positional unit for each position for next season. And today we're going to break down the best running back rooms or backfields in the country. So Brandon, who are you picking as the best running back or backfield room in the country?
Yeah, so when you pitched the best backfield in the country to me, I was thinking best like running back quarterback combo. So I'm still gonna run with that. I think my pick plays. Uh, how do you pick anybody that's not Clemson here, right? You know, it's they
No,
have
no,
Travis Etienne returning.
Clemson was my first pick too. So go ahead, man. I will build right off of
Right.
you.
No, Travis Etienne is returning for his senior campaign. I mean, it's nuts. Who would have expected this? This is a guy. Obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the only first-round pick running back this year. I believe that if Travis Etienne would have gone to the draft, he might have been taken in Clyde Edwards-Helaire's place, just because they're sort of like they're very similar running backs, but I think that Travis Etienne is more talented. Um, he's just that dual threat guy. He can take the ball and rush it out of the backfield and just shove it down your throat, or he could go out. I mean, even line up at slot receiver. I mean, he's a receiving back really, and he's really shown that over this past season. Over his career, I mean, he's caught 54 passes for nearly 600 yards and six touchdowns, and as a running back, that is that number is insane. And let's talk about his ground game. I mean, over his career, he has over 4,000 career rushing yards over 3 seasons and 56 touchdowns. Um, this past season, he had an average of 8 yards per carry every single time he touched the ball. He racked up 1,600 yards on the ground, and it to me, it's just insane the things that he can do. And he's returning for his senior season. He's coming back, and who's to say this isn't going to be his best season yet? So I think there's a lot of potential there. And obviously, when I picked it, like I said, I thought it was the best duo. And I mean, Etienne and Lawrence, name a better duo. I'll wait because there's not one. But yeah, I mean, even if we're just talking running backs, I mean, Travis Etienne can carry this conversation all day if he wanted to.
Yeah, I picked Clemson, and I was just looking at the running backs. Like Brandon said, he's already broken down his stats. Don't need to go over that again. But he's a back-to-back ACC Offensive Player of the Year. And
Right.
I would say if it wasn't for Chuba Hubbard, I would probably rank him the best running back in college football. I mean, to be
Yeah.
100%. I mean, Chuba Hubbard, we'll get to him. He's really, really good. But Travis Etienne is right up there. I think Travis Etienne is more dynamic than Chuba Hubbard, but if we're talking pure running back, Hubbard's got him. But and this goes deeper than just Etienne. I mean, Lynn J. Dixon has just as much potential as Etienne. He has over 1,000 yards rushing in his career, over 10 touchdowns, and he averages 7.1 yards per carry for his whole career at Clemson.
Right.
So
It's
when
insane.
so when Etienne has to go to the bench or they have him out wide in the slot, Lynn J. Dixon can make a play. And I think this year, as Travis Etienne and these other players try to pick up some Justin Ross slack, look for Lynn J. Dixon to get some playing time in the backfield. Because I think Travis Etienne is going to need a break. He has a lot of touches in his career. So if they want to manage Etienne, Lynn J. Dixon is the guy to do it. And Dixon is just as good in the pass game, too. So watch him outside in the slot as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to. And this is just such a dynamic duo in Clemson's backfield, and it's going to be
Well,
insanely dangerous. Because
and
typically, what do you have in a given backfield? You have that one running back that's going to carry the load, who was Travis Etienne in this case, and then you might have a few backups or a few extra guys who maybe they're like a different kind of back. But these two guys are very similar in the way they play, and I mean, it's almost like Zach said, Lynn J. Dixon is taking the ball for 7.1 yards every single time he touches it. Travis Etienne's taking for 7.8. I mean, that's so similar. It's scary.
I mean, and Brandon, don't forget either, they landed Demarcus Bowman this offseason as a unanimous 5-star recruit coming
Oh
in.
yeah.
And guys, I want to talk about Bowman for a second. Okay, Brandon, I don't know how much you know about this kid, but he rushed for over 5,000 yards in his high school career over 3 years. And Brandon, in his whole career, he averaged 11.4 yards per carry throughout
Yeah,
his
it's nuts.
entire career and had over 70 touchdowns. And
Holy cow.
personally, I've watched this film. I know a little bit about this kid. He's more talented than Etienne is right now.
You
He's
really
that
think so?
good. He's that good.
Wow.
Guys, go watch this film. Demarcus Bowman. He's coming in as a true freshman, and I think he's going to play a real role, especially late in the season. I mean, if he doesn't have to see the field till the last 4 games of the season, just save him to the playoffs and bring him in. This kid's got the perfect blend of speed, power, agility, finesse, vision. This kid's the real deal, guys, and I think he could go down already as the best Clemson running back ever to suit up.
I mean, that's a very bold statement, and it's very high expectations for this kid. Obviously, Zach just set the bar maybe way too high, but we'll see.
Well, okay, so I don't like putting unrealistic expectations. This kid's gonna be really good. How about that? Will we take
Yeah,
that?
we can agree
Okay,
on that. Yeah.
okay. So my second pick here, man, this is gonna make me throw up. I hate this. I hate this show sometimes. It's the
Oh
Alabama
no,
Crimson
don't
Tide.
say it. Oh, gross.
It's the Alabama Crimson Tide. I mean, Brandon, we can agree. Najee Harris is a top 5 running back in the country.
Yeah, and it was a
Let's be
shock that he
real.
came back too. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And he had over 1,500 yards and 20 touchdowns through the on the ground and through the air last season. And he's probably, I would say, he's the most physically dominant running back in the country in
Yeah,
terms
I
of
mean,
just.
whereas ETN he's a threat of the backfield in two dynamics. Najee Harris is a back that will just run you over and continue running down the field. Travis Etienne might be able to run around you. He has that quickness and that speed. And don't let me take away from his physicality. He's very physical, but Najee Harris is like a whole different level of physical.
He's like a defensive end running up the middle.
Right.
And I mean,
Absolutely.
Uh, I think he's going to follow in the footsteps of Derrick Henry. I think Najee Harris is a Heisman contender that should be taken serious this next season. Him and Chuba
Yeah.
Hubbard can make a real run at the Heisman, in my opinion.
Right. And it's not like he can't go out of the backfield and catch passes either. He has nearly 400 yards receiving and seven receiving touchdowns. Um, that's more receiving touchdowns than Travis Etienne has over his career.
It's crazy. I mean, this guy is so dynamic, and he's the main reason I picked Alabama. But let's not forget, Brian Robinson Jr. had some moments last season when Harris had to take a break on the field, and he's a threat when he's in the game. Over 800 yards in his career, 9 touchdowns. He's just as physical as Harris, but he lacks a little bit of the explosiveness in open field to me. But Bama, another year of development, Robinson could come out and be the next great running back. I mean, he easily after Harris leaves, he takes over this next year. I think he could be one of the best running backs in the SEC. And I think he played a little bit in that LSU game and was a little bit of a difference maker when Harris was off the field.
Yeah, it's definitely not like it's not out of touch with the reality to say that. I think that it's definitely in the realm of possibilities.
And don't forget, they also landed a big running back this offseason. Jace McClellan, and he was originally committed to Oklahoma, and he was clocked at a 4.5 in high school and has prototypical size to be a physical presence on the inside. He's short, he's stocky, he has a perfect build. He dominated in Texas. Brandon, he had over 6,400 yards and had over 120 total touchdowns in his
That's
three
nuts.
seasons. And he was, and
120.
that's what I was saying. In Texas, he was the max prep all freshman of the year
That's nuts.
in high
He
school.
averaged 40 touchdowns a year.
Yeah,
You only
yes.
played 10 games in high school football.
Well,
That's four
also,
touchdowns a game.
I think it was either a sophomore or a freshman. He took his team all the way to the Texas State Championship.
That's ridiculous.
So, guys,
That should just not be allowed.
I'm picking Alabama as my second pick here, even though it makes me sick. They have 3 kids who would start at any program in the country.
Yeah, fair enough. I would give you my second pick, but I went with one pick. I don't guess I understood the segment well enough.
Guys, it's all hey, when we roll out new segments, we're also rolling with it. But yeah, I think Alabama and Clemson would be a good sum up. I mean, those I would say those are the deepest running back rooms in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's
Because
hey, fair enough.
you have teams like Oklahoma State that have Chuba Hubbard, but do they have anyone behind them? And then other people like Jonathan Taylor left. So it's like, what do we really know what Wisconsin really has?
No, we don't, and that's a very good point.
So, guys, last segment of the day, you will know what it is. I'll at least, you know what, as we usually do, we're going to end with a recruiting update from us. Guys, just check out Brandon, the episodes for the last month to catch up on updates from around the country. And
Yeah.
it's been a minute, but we're going to head up to South Bend to analyze the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They're trying to follow up a top 20 class from last season, and Brian Kelly is bringing in some elite talent to lead another charge to the playoffs. It's loaded, 6 top 300 recruits already, and they're not done. They're in the running for a lot more. Brandon, I usually let you start this. There's somebody I really need to talk about because
Go for it.
I think he's the best. Well, I would say he's going to end up as a top 10 player in the country when it's all said and done. Um,
Okay.
Tyler Buchner, the number
Okay.
28 player in the country. He's the number 3 quarterback in the country. he's going to end this cycle as the best quarterback in the country and should be a top 5 player in the country. I'm here to say it. He's going to start as a true freshman when Ian Book heads to the NFL after this year. He runs a 4.6 already. And Brandon, in his high school, in his last season, he ran for over 1,600 yards, 28 touchdowns, and averaged 12.6 yards per carry as a quarterback.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's I
And,
can't. I don't even know what to say.
and his decision making to me, watching his film, is the best in this recruiting class by far for a quarterback. He had only six interceptions. Brandon, he had 402 passing attempts and only had six interceptions.
That's insane.
And Brandon, he threw for over 4,400 yards and 53 touchdowns last year. So just in one season, he threw for over 4,400 yards, 53 passing touchdowns, ran for over 1,600 yards, and had 28 touchdowns on the ground.
I mean, the kid's good. I watched his tape.
It,
It's very impressive, and I'm going to continue on with the streak of saying if you haven't watched this film, go watch it. It's something.
yes. If we were allowed, I would post his huddle on our page. This kid's so good. I mean, he has a very unique ability. Like he has the playmaking, the accuracy, the throw power, the ability to attack defenses at every level. Brandon, he threw for 4,400 yards. He averaged 16.8 yards per completion. That's a first down and a half every single time he touched the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's nuts.
Guys, this kid is the one of the best prospects I've seen in a long time. And if he doesn't get Notre Dame over the hump, they're doomed because he is the missing piece of the puzzle. Anything you can say about Ian Book not being a perfect playmaker, not being able to win the big games, Tyler Buchner is that guy. And I have really high hopes. And this kid is the real deal. And I cannot wait to see him suit up.
No, dude, I can't either. And I honestly want to talk about him. And it's crazy that Notre Dame reeled this kid in, right? I mean, he's the third, like you said, he right now he's ranked the third best quarterback in the country during this recruiting cycle. You think he's good enough to be the first ranked, which is, I mean, very good on him. And he's out of La Mesa, California. It's not like they're taking him out of Indiana or somewhere in the Midwest. They're fishing this kid out of the West Coast and taking him to Notre Dame, which is insane to me.
Yep, I agree. I mean, I can't say enough about this kid. Like, I don't want to I've already got called out for putting unrealistic expectations on somebody. So I don't want to do it again. But the Notre Dame has talent at these other positions, guys. And I would not be surprised to see this kid lead Notre Dame to a national title or compete for a Heisman Trophy. He's that good. And when you watch film, like you can tell when a player's good, but it does that player have that it factor? This kid has the it factor.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Well, about some things, I think the national championship might be a little bit. I don't want to say out of reach, but I think Heisman's far more achievable than national championship.
I mean, Notre Dame has been to the national championship recently and was in the playoffs like 2 years ago.
How did both of those turn out for them?
Yeah, did they have this kid at quarterback?
No, you think he's the single missing piece?
Yeah, I do because their problem in both games was their offense not being able to move the ball.
Well, let's move on from this kid and talk about another piece of the offense that's coming in during this recruiting cycle. And this is the player that I'm most excited for on in Notre Dame's recruiting for this cycle, and that's Lorenzo Styles Jr. He's a wide receiver out of Pickering, Ohio. And I don't know how big of a fan you are, Zach, of very fast wide receivers. This kid runs a 4.47 as a junior in high school, incredibly fast. Um, but if you watch him on the field, his on field speed is, I mean, I've literally, over, at least in this recruiting cycle, haven't seen a kid this fast yet. It's insane how he just burns every single cornerback, every single safety, every single anybody who tries to cover him. He just burns them. He gets like 10 yards of separation, and it's just the easiest. It's the easiest pass in the world for their quarterback to make. And when these two kids make it to Notre Dame, they're going to be a lethal combination. So yeah, I mean, if their offense truly is what's keeping them from national championship contention, then I think these two kids can really help to solve that to solve that issue.
I mean, he's really good. I did want to highlight. I don't like just sit here and highlighting players repeatedly for you guys. So I did take a. I didn't. I wasn't going to talk about this kid, but Brandon's right. He's elite, and these two guys together, man. I mean, I
Don't let Zach fool you. He didn't want to talk about him because his second pick was Auburn.
no, no, I
Zach's
did.
still a
I
little
like. Oh my
upset.
gosh. Oh my gosh. It's really because there's two other kids in the class. So, Brandon, I don't know if you see my pattern. I picked the two of the highest rated players in the class, and I'll highlight them for our listeners. And then I'll find a gem that I like that might be lower rated, but you guys need to know their name. This class had two guys that I thought were gems, so I cut off one of my early picks that were like high rated players that everyone might know. But there's two guys in this class that had a low rating that I wanted to highlight. So that's why I didn't talk about them. I am a little salty he didn't pick Auburn, but he is elite, guys. And I think he's going to be really good. And it's needed, though, because, I mean, Claypool's gone. And these guys up in their name got to have a go to target, right?
Right.
I mean, Claypool was dominant, guys. That was an elite receiver. But I mentioned I had two gems here. One, both of them. Well, I guess both of them were on defense. One, and they're both under. They're both over 500 nationally. My first player, Justin Walters. He's the 518th ranked player and the 31st safety in the country.
Right.
Um, he is my gem in the rough in terms of secondary players, guys. He's big, 6'2". He needs to put on some weight. He's only 175, but if he can put on some muscle mass, he could play as an outside linebacker. But he can play both safety spots, so you can move him all around. He can play the slot. But the biggest thing for me, watching his film, researching this kid, is his aggressiveness that he plays with, and just the violent nature that he brings to the field, man. I mean, this kid will separate ball carriers from the ball quickly. He has the athleticism to make plays in the open field with his length. He has big strides, which helps him run down wide receivers. But his size is why I like him so much. He's big enough to cover tight ends and lanky wide receivers, but he's also fast enough to cover those quick slot receivers and running backs out the backfield. So he has everything you look for in a safety, and I think he's overlooked right now, and I think he could become a real factor when he gets to Notre Dame. And I can see him starting at safety for 2 to 3 years in Notre Dame, and I don't think a lot of people are predicting that right now.
Right. I couldn't find his tape. That might have been an issue for me, but anyway,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
good
I
on
had to,
you, Zach.
I
Couldn't
had,
find
I
his
had to
tape.
search for his tape, man. I think it was on like some weird high school website. I can send it to you after the show. But yeah, he's good. And my last player, it's weird because this guy, the only reason he's overlooked is he plays in a small state, and this is only his second year of football ever.
Right.
And that's Jason. I don't know. I'm not sure how you pronounce this, but I think it's Oni,
I
and
think it's
he's
Anya.
yeah, Anya, Jason Anya, 556th ranked player, 39th weak side defensive end, but he's the number one player in the state of Rhode Island. So he's a 3-star. The Rhode Island is not known as a pipeline state for any team, and it's not a talent rich state like Texas or Georgia. So he's overlooked because of that, and this is only his second year playing organized football. Brandon, he started playing football as a sophomore in high school,
Okay.
and in his second season as a junior, he had 76 tackles and 15 sacks as a defensive end.
Pretty impressive.
And he's 6'5", 245, And they set in like everything I've been reading is that he puts on weight quick and he's getting bigger because he wasn't even working out till 2 years ago to be a football
That's
player.
insane.
And he's
Yeah,
6'5",
that's insane.
245 right now. And they're projecting
Jeez.
him to grow more. And if he adds more muscle mass to his frame, he is going to be an issue, guys. And I think if you're getting 76 tackles as a defensive end in high school and you're getting 15 sacks, this kid is going to be a household name. And once he figures out the game, because in 2 years, guys, you really don't understand the schemes and like really how to play football. And so once he understands that, I think the sky's the limit for this kid. And if he was in a bigger state, I think he easily has top 100 talent.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're right. I saw this kid's tape as well, and I was really high on him. I didn't choose him as one. For some reason, I just have this aversion. He's the I don't even know what to say. He's not the top. He's the bottom ranked player for Notre Dame right now. He
Yeah,
has
he's
the
the
least
lowest rank. Yeah, lowest rank.
lowest ranked. That's I guess that's what you'd say if you were educated. He's the lowest ranked player for Notre Dame right now. And I don't know, something about that was just like, oh, that's too obvious to pick. But no, that is a great pick, Zach. Um, I guess if I had to choose one more player that I would say to look out for, that would be Philip Riley. He's a cornerback out of Florida, out of where's that? Valrico, Florida. Um, he's the 21st best cornerback in the country, the 45th best player in the state of Florida, 287 national. He's 4-star. Um, very physical cornerback, a pretty big cornerback too. He's 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, and he can add more weight to that frame, whatever. But that's a good size for a college cornerback, really and truly. Um, he's a very physical player. I like that his highlight film pointed out who he was covering a lot of the times. He's covering 5-star wide receivers, 4-star wide receivers, and I mean just knocking passes out of the air, going up, grabbing interceptions. He's a very impressive player. And while he's not like bottom of the barrel in this recruiting class, I think he's a player that is a little bit overlooked just because there is a lot of talent in this recruiting class. Um, but yeah, I mean, there were other players here that I just wasn't really that impressed with. Um, so I think Philip Riley, I think everyone that we've mentioned so far has been players that I've been very impressed with.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this class is stout, and I think if they add a few more pieces, I really think it could finish. I would say what top 10 in the country. I think it has potential for that, especially if um players like we highlighted our gems in the class get a rise in their rankings after their senior year football, guys. I mean, we're doing this kind of early, but there's a lot of teams we got to break down, a lot of different moving parts in recruiting, and so a lot of these players aren't going to stick where they are because, like I said, I really really think Tyler Buchner is going to end up as a top 10 player in this class, and that is going to greatly improve Notre Dame's chances of having a top 10 class. And I think Notre Dame, Brandon, I don't know about you, is one of those programs that you can always count on them getting some elite recruits just based off name recognition.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, so this is going to be corny, but I got to ask, like, would you consider them a blue blood program?
Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm just making sure. I mean, people have weird things. We got to do an episode like that. This is just random, guys. Sorry, I'm just talking now. We really do have to do a Blue Bloods episode about who are the real Blue Bloods in college football.
Yeah, I mean, it's our namesake. And I feel like we probably should have talked about this by now, but we just haven't.
But what we're what 87 episodes in, and we have yet to talk
Yeah.
about it.
We're
Hey,
surprisingly not named after about the program about police officers or whatever. I've never seen the Blue Bloods, that TV show. But
yeah, I
that's not
haven't
who we're
either.
named after, by the way.
Yeah, no, we're not. Hey, go listen to our interview with Clemson play-by-play guy Don Munson to hear why we are named the Blue Bloods.
Yeah,
How
very
about
great
that?
interview.
But yeah,
If you only listen to one of our great plugs, Zach, if you only listen to one of our interviews, that's the one you need to go listen to. It's fantastic. And I'm done plugging my own podcast on my podcast.
it's like okay, it's like the people who are listening are like, yes, we get it. We're listening to your episodes. Oh,
Yeah.
that's tough. That's tough. But guys, that is a wrap on this episode. We've got a little bit back on schedule this week. Sorry about last week. Brandon does not have to keep declaring war on Cox Internet.
No,
So
I'm still at war. Don't worry. I have
okay,
internet, but
guys.
I'm still at war.
Yeah, if you guys want to join the war against Cox, hit Brandon up. Um, but guys, social media, Instagram at the underscore Blue Bloods, Facebook at the Blue Bloods Pod, Twitter at the underscore Blue Bloods. Um, our website, thebluebloodspod.com. Go check all that out. Follow us on everything. You can find the podcast everywhere: Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. Sorry, Spotify, YouTube, all that. On YouTube, just look up the Blue Bloods CFB podcast. We are there. All our episodes are there. Um, but yeah, you guys subscribe to all your friends, rate the podcast, spread the word, guys. We love all our listeners out there. You guys keep coming to listen. We're going to keep dropping episodes. That's how this works. But for right now, we out.